Hello and welcome to All Things Funny Chat with me, Naomi Gal. And today it's a guest. We have Laura Wallace on with us today, who is an alignment coach in the US. And so this gives me the third opportunity that I've been waiting for, Laura. You didn't know this question was coming, but I need a third opinion to even out this challenge that I'm dealing with. So I called the podcast Fanny Chat. Could have called it Vagina Chat, could have called it Vulva Chat, Pussy Chat, whatever. But I went with Fanny. And I realized that Fanny can mean something very different in the US. I've had two opinions and I'm waiting for a third. Fanny.
So you're looking for the tiebreaker.
I am.
So in the US, I would associate Fanny as a butt.
This is so disappointing, Laura.
I'm sorry.
Why?
That's not the answer you were looking for.
No. Welcome to Butt Chat. Welcome to
the butt
Ass Chat.
I mean, that's got a ring to it in its own.
Okay, great. The arse end of the chat. I feel like, you know what, Laura, I'm going to go with it because I feel like, I'm British. It's the British in me. And I feel like we know, right? We know. You know?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I mean,
great.
it's one of those things like, look, you're never going to appease everyone in every place in the entire globe. So
True.
if it feels aligned to you and
Okay.
it still feels right to you, then
Okay.
Fanny Chat it is.
Okay, great. Do you know what confuses me though with the US is why do we have, because we don't call that, we call it bum bag. You call it fanny pack. Why?
I I have no look, I have no idea. There are so many words that is like, well, duh, and then you hear it in another country or in a different culture, and you're like, well, wait a second, now I'm questioning my entire existence. Like, but it's fascinating too, right? Like, I don't know, I just think that the world is neat.
I'm like, where do you wear your fanny pack? Oh, you wear it across your fanny. So you're like, oh, fanny pack. And I'm like, maybe the British wear it on their bums and it's bum bag. And I've been wearing it all wrong. I mean, I don't know. It's just fascinating. Fascinating.
It really is.
Anyway, that's my introduction. You're welcome. But Laura, please actually introduce yourself. Tell us where you are specifically. Tell us more about what you do. I'd be really grateful to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thanks for having me. I'm always a huge fan of having badass, honest conversations with amazing people around the world. So thanks for having me. You mentioned I'm in the US, so I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm on the East Coast. And I've been in business for 15 years. 15
Wow.
years. Yeah, I
Wow.
started my journey as a graphic designer, ran a branding agency for a very long time. It still is in operation today. But through the years, I've always had this pull to not just the brand, but the person behind the brand, not just the business, but the person behind the business.
Mm,
Because as an entrepreneur, we have these weird thoughts and feelings and expectations and these really like harsh conversations with ourselves, and comparison is a whole thing. And, there's just all this chatter that happens in the mind. So I've always been really called to the person behind the business. And
mm.
so over the last few years, particularly after the pandemic hit, and we were all faced with, what do you actually really want in this world? I really started to lean into coaching and consulting and being just much more involved in like the mindset and the alignment and like, who are you really and what do you actually want? And so alignment coaching is where I am today. I
Mm.
love, 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 love working with female entrepreneurs, but also people that are in a transition in life or feel like there's just like this unfulfilled part of themselves. Right. And that can go hand in
Mm.
hand with running a business, but it can also just be in life as well. So helping people to recognize like who they truly are and what they really want, and what feels right to me. That's a question that often gets bypassed or pushed into the background. So through coaching, and then I also have a podcast called the Gutsy Podcast, where we have very real and honest conversations about running a business. It's just my joy and my honor to help people get back to who they've always been.
Oh my gosh, the best introduction ever, Laura. I love it so much because I was reading on your website. So there was a point, and I think you said that your child was like 6.5 months old, and you were like, that's when you kind of realized that this just wasn't for you or what you were currently doing. And you're like, I want more. There's more for this. And I love the way on your website you were saying that if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel right anymore, then it's not. Move on. Next.
Yes. I mean, we're just taught and conditioned that like, okay, I've spent all this time, money, and effort on this one thing, and now I have to stick it out, right?
Mm, mm,
I have to push through. I have to hustle my way through. I'm going to let people down. And it's like, you're allowed to change your mind. You are absolutely allowed to change your mind. What got you to where you are now may not be the thing that takes you the rest of the way or even to the next chapter.
mm,
And really just listening to yourself and your body, like, what do I truly want? And allowing yourself to be like, you know what? This isn't working anymore. And I don't feel excited. I
mm,
don't feel motivated to do this anymore. This work really drains me, or whatever the situation is. Like, your body is your best communicator.
mm.
It is always speaking to you. And so the
Mm,
question is, are you listening?
mm. Yes, this is what I talk about all the time with people, of course, like tuning into their bodies. And, when sometimes even just as basic as, which isn't basic to so many of us, but the pain that we experience in the pelvis, right? This consistent pain, it can be alleviated by changing relationships, for example, by changing jobs, for example, right? Like, the body is speaking to us all the time, and like you say, if we completely ignore it, it's easy to bypass that, keep going on. And I love the fact that you are speaking to, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay, because I don't know, Laura, why is it in society? I think especially for female entrepreneurs, I don't know why we seem to be chastised for wanting to change our minds. I feel like there is that general, like, oh, another harebrained scheme, I hear, right, isn't it? And we're always
Yes.
like downplayed in that way, like, oh, here she goes, another idea. Why is this why? I don't understand.
Look, the conditioning over the last, I don't know how many decades, is very slowly, but most certainly being unraveled right now. We live in a very cool time frame where, like, specifically women in business, in this particular conversation, is like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Mm,
I actually don't care what you think. I appreciate your insight, but those are your thoughts and
mm,
feelings and expectations, not my own. And
mm,
so there's just this generational conditioning where, you have to get in your one lane and you got to work your way to the top of the ladder, and
right.
you got to get married, and you got to have children, you got to do this, and there's all these like life milestone expectation. It's like, well, what if that's not your path?
Mm, mm,
That's okay, right? Like, but when there's so many things and people around you convincing you, like, oh, to want what you want is bad,
mm,
well, it's no wonder a lot of people just kind of sit back and don't really fulfill everything that they want to do in this world. But um I'm here to hold all of your hands and be like, screw that noise. Like, we're we're not doing that anymore.
mm.
That's not how we roll. Because you have so much in you that this world needs. So everyone can have their opinion, and that's okay. The trick is to not absorb their opinion and make it your own.
Yeah, yes. And I watch a lot of your TikTok videos because we first met via the Rachel Rogers Make Money Moves challenge that we were in
Yes.
together. And then we connected over TikTok, and your videos pop up. And I love the way you speak to camera. It's like a no shits given approach to feeling into your needs. And I love it. Um, but I also love it because we were just talking about this before we started recording. Like, TikTok life is not for everybody, but actually it's spaces like TikTok, it's platforms like TikTok, and back in the day, Instagram, and the fact you can have your own email list, the fact you can start a website from nothing. In fact, Canva now, you can have a website on Canva for nothing, right?
Yes.
Like, it's given us so much to be able to change our minds so easily, and that's okay. And then sometimes something sticks and you're like, that's the one, but actually it might not be the first thing that you do outside of the job that you originally had, like the 9 to 5 job that's deemed the societal that's okay in society. And I speak as a
Right.
primary teacher, so I was an ex-primary teacher in the classroom for 10 years. How dare I leave the primary profession?
How dare, what were you even thinking?
Honestly, and do you know what, Laura? The number of people who legit still today. I mean, I haven't been in the classroom for 7 years. I don't even know what the classroom looks like anymore, right? But they still today. In fact, it was only recently I was at a barbecue, and this man turns around to me and goes, "But you could always go back, though, couldn't you?" At what point did I mention that I ever wanted to go back in the classroom? I don't understand. Like, yeah, it's
Do you know what I find in those types of scenarios? It is projection at its finest. Like, because they can't see themselves doing what you're doing, their own
right.
fear comes out and it's like, oh, but you could go back. There's a safety net. Like if this doesn't work out, and it's like, okay, maybe it doesn't work out, but who are you to tell me what I can and cannot go back to? Or maybe there's something else calling me in the future. Like, who knows? But I I've learned, and it's taken a lot of practice, don't get me wrong. I've had a lot of moments where I'm like, what in the actual fuck? But um in those scenarios, it's like, oh, I can see how you feel about yourself in this situation. And
hmm
so I can
hmm
remove myself emotionally. I'm not
hmm
perfect. There are still moments where I'm like, hmm. But it's an interesting ride, that's for sure.
I always say in those situations, just like, I'm just not fully enlightened yet. Okay. So sometimes I might snap back a little.
I'm not fully enlightened. Yes. To your point, when you were talking about TikTok and stuff too, one of the things that I love most about that platform is how it has humanized what a lot of people are thinking and feeling.
hmm
When you don't have that community, it's very easy to feel like you're alone or you're the only
mm,
one that has this need or desire or this pain or this whatever it is. And then TikTok comes along and everyone's like, you know what? Masks off,
mm,
we're just
mm,
going to be, fluid and honest and talk about what's really going on. And I think that that's given a lot of people courage, especially if they don't have a tight community or people that they can lean on to talk to.
mm,
Places like TikTok has been like, hey, I see you.
mm,
This is okay. This is normal.
mm.
Do your thing.
Mm, mm. I agree. And there's a niche for everything on TikTok. There is a niche for everything. I
There
supported
is.
somebody to go on there, and she talks about ADHD and writing, like being an author and having ADHD. And she was like, I think this is going to be a great niche, and it really was. Like her videos hit within a week, and it's like. And it's like she just grew thousands of followers within like 2 weeks. And it's like if you have someone or something to say, there's someone that wants to listen on TikTok. On
Yes.
Instagram, unless it's perfection, then what's the point?
Then what is the point? Yeah, I think I look at the excuse me, the social platforms sometimes like personalities. If you built like an avatar for the different social platforms, like
Right.
I don't know, it's like you can see the difference and knowing too, like where do you want to be and where are your people at?
Mm,
Again, it
mm,
goes back to being able to change your mind. I started most of my branding stuff and most of my coaching stuff on Facebook.
right.
Holy crickets. Like it's
Right.
just my people have shifted away from there. So why put the time, money, or energy into trying to grow something that has it's done for me
mm,
particularly. I
mm,
know other people that are thriving on Facebook. So,
mm, mm, mm,
just
mm,
that again, it goes back to like what works for me, where are my people at? Where do
mhm,
I have the most fun? For
mhm,
me right now in this season, I have a lot of fun on TikTok. I love
mhm.
watching you. You're watching my stuff. We're connecting with people all around the world. I mean, I think it's fascinating.
Mm, mm. And I love that word season. What season of the life are we in? Because that's what people forget as well, is that our seasons of our life change. And that, when we become mothers, for some of us, it changes again. And then when our children will grow up, it will probably change again. It's like, it's the seasons of our life that we have to honor and respect. The same as I say, okay, respect that and the seasons of our cycle. It's like a bigger picture of everything, right? And I think that we feel that we can't flow and we ebb and flow with those seasons. It's like, oh, I'm a mother now, so I must not take. It's risks. It is a risk. There's fear. It's will I fall and land in that feather bed? But it's risks that I personally would rather see my children and my family watch me make than just be unhappy, deeply unhappy in what I was doing before, right?
Absolutely. I think that sometimes we have a death grip on letting
Yes.
letting go of seasons,
Oh my
right?
gosh, the death girl. I love that. The death.
Yes.
Yes.
Like we're like hanging on for dear life, saying like, I know how to do this. I know how to navigate this. I know what to expect. Like you've mastered that season. So like, why would you want to move out of comfort, right? It's like
Right,
getting
right.
out of bed in the middle of the night when you have to pee. I don't want to get out of my warm, comfortable bed. That's
Not
the freaking worst.
ever.
But, you know, to get the relief or to get to where you want to be, you got to move out of that comfort sometimes. And, I think it's easy to forget that at one point, what you just mastered was new to you at one point as well.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
so letting go, starting to like remove your hands from the death grip of what was and say, okay, let me be curious about what's next. What new things am I going to learn? What new experiences am I going to have? What am I going to do in this next phase? And
mm,
it's scary. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. It's not like, oh yes, I'm going to just charge in here and it's going to go perfectly. Um, but hanging on to things that don't belong anymore causes a lot of discomfort in a lot of ways.
mm. I'm actually going to think about that getting up and pee analogy for a long time, Laura. That's going to stick with me in this
I think I'm
conversation.
going to as well. You're going to see a TikTok about that later.
Just love it. So true. I will be so desperate, so desperate.
And it's somehow you convince yourself that the pee is just going to like reabsorb, right? Like if I just close my eyes, the pee will go away. And then you wake up and you have like this horrendous pain
Oh
in
my
your
God.
pelvic area, and you're like, now I've totally screwed up. Everything is fucked.
Have I now got a UTI because I didn't get up in the middle of the night? I totally should have got.
Yes.
It's so true. It's so true. I want to know though, Laura, how do we know, right? Because when I was feeling into changing from primary teaching, I started another business, which I then sold, which is why I think people think I'm flippant, right? And then I'm like, and now I talk about vaginas all day, which is why I definitely will never be going back to the primary classroom. Is
Yes.
this, is
Totally
this
different
you?
spectrum.
I have actually had past students find me on TikTok as well. Miss Price, what happened? Like my old surname. So
And
no,
you're like, well, here we are. It's bound to happen.
exactly. But like this journey just sort of unfolded for me, but I never really understood why or how I ended up here. So I'm wondering, Laura, like, what is it? What are the signs that people are looking for that's like, okay, I need to go for it. I need to start this idea, this concept, this new business, this new career change, this course. Like, what are the signs? Like, what are we looking for, do you think?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. So I'm always a huge fan of following the breadcrumbs that your intuition is trying to give you. And
Mm-hmm.
so your intuition often speaks to you in very soft, subtle ways. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing that more often. And like there's this curiosity of like, oh, something is starting to light me up a little bit. Let me lean into that. I don't know anything about this or what I'm doing, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of fascinated. So let me lean into it. So
Mm-hmm.
listening to your intuition is always huge. But also recognizing like when you're out of alignment or when a season is changing, what are you consistently frustrated by?
Mm-hmm.
What are you procrastinating like hell on? Where do you feel unmotivated and just lacking desire and creativity? Like when all that stuff, now look, we have moments, right? I love what I do and I still have moments where I'm like, I want to do nothing. Don't talk to me. That's a normal part of being a human. But if we can really look at the stuff like what is starting to drain me that
Mm-hmm.
used to light me up,
Mm-hmm.
that's a really huge indication that your body and your soul is trying to shift into something new. And so
Mm-hmm.
just this constant, if that becomes like your norm, if you have a bad day and you're feeling drained, take a rest. Like that's part of your human being necessity. But if you're constantly feeling drained, if you're constantly feeling frustrated, if you're constantly feeling like you have to talk yourself into it,
Mm-hmm.
that's when your intuition is trying to tell you something. It's like, okay, this is done, or this is starting to change. Where do we need to start leaning into something else? So ongoing discomfort is probably the easiest way I can explain it.
Mm. That ongoing need to pee is basically what this comes down to, Laura.
Basically,
Right,
yes.
gotcha. I hear you. I hear you because that actually really, yeah, I can really hear how that would land for someone, especially like when I have people come into my space and they write about their work on their form, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't lighting you up anymore. I can feel it, And then when they come in the space, they start talking about it, and they go, eventually they'll say, I'm thinking about doing this or I'm thinking about doing that. And you're like, oh, there it is, you know?
There it is. There's the curiosity. Yeah, and honestly, sometimes too, it's like it doesn't even have to be this big like I hate what I'm doing.
Mm,
It's not always a big emotion. Oh, sometimes it is.
mm-hmm,
But sometimes it's just like I I'm just not I'm not lit up by this anymore. And
mm-hmm.
there's something else that is lighting me up, you know? I would imagine in your transition, like what was your transition like? Were you like, I just really don't want to do this anymore? Or was it kind of a natural curiosity transition?
From teaching, it was like, I don't want to do this anymore, like crying on a
Yeah.
Sunday night, you know?
Yes.
And then when I left my handmade business and I sold it, it was, I'm following these breadcrumbs. It was very much like that analogy that you used there. It's like, okay, you know, I'm starting to help people with their fertility, but I'm not sure why. And, you know, and you just sort of follow that. And that's what I always talk about with the healing journey, right? And I'm sure you resonate with this, Laura, because I know you've been on a healing journey yourself. And it's like you end up going, okay, well, I'm going to go into this space. Oh, now I'm going to go into this space. And then you just sort of like keep following the those breadcrumbs. And then you end up
Yes.
here, you know?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like your intuition is constantly communicating with you. And
Mm-hmm.
so those breadcrumbs are an idea that you get or something that you see online that intrigues you or
Yes.
just information that sticks with you or you I don't know, you just start seeing repetitious things. It's not always this like billboard sign flashing like here is the answer. Like that would
Right.
be really helpful. But it's not usually how it works. Now, I will tell you, if you don't listen to your intuition,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about what happens then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because your your body will readjust. And so if your soul is putting down breadcrumbs and
Mm.
you're like, I see it, but I'm gonna go against. I
Mm-hmm.
see it, I'm going against. What will happen it will whisper and then it'll talk to you. And then it'll look at you in the face and it'll tap you on the shoulder and then it'll start yelling at you. And if you don't listen, and this is truly a pivot moment for you, this is really a shift that your soul's purpose is supposed to take, it will grab you by the shoulders and shake the shit out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
those are the moments when like shit hits the fan and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, and sometimes
Yes.
it takes those. So if you've experienced one of those, it's not that you did anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just now you have the cues and you understand. You can look back. I've never talked to a single person that was like, "Oh, I just still don't understand." Like, "Oh, now I can see." In
Mm-hmm.
hindsight, I can look back and see. So, knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
But no, if a shift is supposed to happen in your life and you don't listen to the breadcrumbs, it will eventually put you in a position where you have to make a decision.
Yes, so true, so true. It's like for me when I say to people, you need to slow down, and they don't slow down, and then someone goes and like breaks a leg or whatever, and it's like, there you go, now you'll
And
have to.
now you have been forced to slow down. Yeah, or people get sick or jobs get taken away
Yes.
or like sometimes these really big life moments happen and in
Mm,
those moments we can learn a lot. I mean, they suck, don't get me wrong, but
yeah.
if you're open to it, you can really learn something from that scenario. But if it's time to shift, it's time to shift.
Do you think, Laura, since COVID, that's like really encouraged a lot of people to make the shifts that they probably haven't made previously?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen over the last 2 years so many people literally reinvent their lives.
mm,
And I think that honestly, a lot of people just got back to what's always been important to them, but they
mm,
never felt like they had the time, the space, the money, or the capacity to do or be the things that they wanted to. And
mm,
when COVID hit, it's like all of a sudden the blinders were off everywhere, and what truly mattered rose
mm.
to the surface. And so I think a lot of people were like, I'm actually no longer willing to negotiate my own happiness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. I agree. I agree. And I'm wondering as well, like the alignment coaching, what does that look like? If someone was like, oh, okay, like alignment coaching, that sounds great, Laura. But what does it involve, like this alignment coaching? Because I saw a TikTok video of yours the other day and you were like, here, I haven't got evidence of me changing, but here's what I was wearing. And then you were like showing a picture of your like t-shirt on the floor. And now I'm wearing this and I feel super comfy. Okay. So I'm
Yes.
like, I feel like it's more than just I feel like I'm just wondering. I feel like it's more than just like It's little things. It goes right down to the small things like what's my outfit today in order to make me feel good when I go and do my working day. Or I feel like it kind of has like infiltrates into every aspect of your life, right? Um,
100%.
yeah, please talk us through it. I'd love to hear more on what alignment looks like basically for our day to day.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like alignment is at its basic terms doing and being who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that can sound really kind of aloof or whatever, but it's like truly listening to who you are and what you want
Mm.
and recognizing what lights you up, recognizing what drains your energy and following those breadcrumbs. So like that video you were talking about, I'm like, okay, I'm going to document how very quickly getting misaligned can show up in your life
Okay.
and just how quickly you can get back into alignment. So
Mm.
it is small. The outfit that I put on that day, it, the jeans were just too tight, right? They weren't sitting right, and the sweater made me feel like a marshmallow, and like nothing was working. I'm like, I don't like any of this.
Okay.
What people will do in that situation is I'll just deal with it.
Mm.
I'll put up with it. I've already put this on. I don't feel like changing, whatever the scenario is. And you'll just deal with it. And you'll go all damn day long being uncomfortable in what you're wearing. And I don't know about you, but when I'm uncomfortable in my clothes, everything is a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yes.
even just sending emails, I'm like tugging at my jeans and the bra's not on quite right and the t-shirt's too tight, so I'm pulling it off my boobs and like, it's a whole thing. You're just constantly thinking about it. And where the power of alignment is recognizing,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, always recognizing this doesn't feel right. I would like to honor that and come back into my own personal alignment. So it's just as quick as recognizing, hey, I don't like how this feels in my body, and reframing it to say, I'm going to change and put on something that I actually want to wear. That particular day, I was recording a bunch of podcast episodes. I wanted to be comfortable, so I put on leggings and a big oversized sweater, and I felt like $1 million. So instead of forcing myself to do something or dress a certain way for whatever reason,
Yeah.
alignment is about coming back to yourself. Who
Mm.
am I? What do I actually want? What am I listening to? What is my body trying to say to me?
Mm. Mm.
And honoring that, saying, okay, let me lean into that. So you're 1,000% right in that alignment shows up in every aspect of your life. And so sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had this scenario, or I was a particular kind of business or life coach where I spoke on this one very particular like method or strategy. And I'm like, that's just not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to build my coaching business for the last 2.5 years off of that. And I'm like, okay, that's just not working. So what do I need to do to get back to myself? And so it's always checks and balances of what am I trying to force myself to do and what do I actually want to do?
Mm.
And
Mm.
constantly doing that over and over and over again in every aspect of your life and in your business. And before you know it, you're you're doing the things that you want to do the way that you want to do it. You're showing up in the world the way that you want to. You're in the career that fulfills you the most. You're dressing in however you want to dress that makes you feel alive and confident. It's living. It's
Mm.
being who you've always been before the world told you what you should be.
Mm, yes, yes. And I always talk to people about their joy and pleasure, right? What people come to me for is like, I can't orgasm. I'm like, there's a whole thing before that. Like, because
Yep.
what about your daily joy and your daily pleasure? Where does that come from? So when you're talking about being in alignment, that's what I really think about. I think about, but where does your joy and pleasure come from day to day? And how
Right.
does that come through? Well, it's only ever going to come through if you're in alignment with your daily doings, with everything, right? Little
Right.
things. And for me, for example, I'm like, I changed my breakfast from having cereal to this very bougie. Do we have the word bougie in America? It's very
Yes,
British.
we
Oh,
do. Yes, we do.
bougie breakfast. And it makes me feel so good. And then that impacted, like, well, actually, I want to make sure that I'm having like a really wholesome lunch. And okay, my tea bags aren't working and I'm going to have better teas. You know what I mean? And then it just makes your day so much better. So much joy
Well,
and pleasure in that.
yes, and we like how long have you been taught that that's wrong or bad or like over the top or too much or whatever? Like how many times I had a very similar transition where, I eat breakfast every morning. That's a new thing for me.
Okay.
And I was not raised on eating breakfast, so it was something that
Okay.
I had to retrain my body for.
Right,
But
right.
but you know, I'm putting my breakfast on my plate, and I was like, I want my fruit in the. I have these really cute little white bowls, and it just like looks really nice, and I wanted some mint on top, and like you put it on there, and
Yes.
it's like, oh, but I'll save that for like a nice breakfast that we're having. Well,
Right.
why can't today's breakfast be nice?
So
What
true.
if that makes me feel good and the way that you're doing your breakfast makes you feel good? Like, how does that domino effect in a great way throughout your
Mhm,
day?
mhm.
You listen to what your body wants, and why can't you have a bougie breakfast? Like, who legitimately, who cares? Like, are there people like banging on the door at 8 a.m. at your house being like, how dare you eat that bougie breakfast? Like, I think sometimes that's what we think is going to happen. Like, people are going to bust down the doors and tell us that we're wrong. And it's like, I like it. It makes me feel good. And it really legitimately doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
Yeah, yeah. And it's being able to move away from that, and it's being able to find safety in the body to allow for those feelings to come and wash over you and go, that's not mine, that's yours.
Yep. Okay.
That's a lot of inner strength. That takes a journey to get to that point, right?
Yeah, alignment is not a one-time fix. It's not a we're flipping over the table and changing everything over the night. It is literally like building a muscle.
Mm,
And it's literally in the individual decisions of
mm,
saying yes to yourself that you
yeah.
start to build that muscle. And as you start to build that muscle and as you start to enjoy your life, to have your own pleasure, to enjoy the work that you're doing, to love the people that you're around, eventually it becomes non-negotiable for you to feel any other way.
Yes. Yes.
And that's how you know, like, okay, this is really starting to stick and really starting to gel. Because when you get to that moment,
Mm,
everything gets so much easier. But it is 100% a journey. It's
mm.
not a formula. It's not a 6-week course that I can sell you to make it all better. It
That is a
it is
shame.
a journey. Look, I feel like I could charge a bajillion dollars if I could fix everyone's problems in 6 weeks.
But I do think that's what people's expectations are. Like, okay, well, then I switch. And then I find that a lot in my space. Well, I've done it. Like, for me, in my space, it's like, well, I've done the vagina massage. Now what? I'm like, you've done one vagina massage. It's not going to erase and move
Yes.
through 32 years of trauma. So, a bit more work to be done. But that's fine because you've
Yes.
started the work. That's the biggest thing. It's starting it. It's being on that treadmill, like you say. And then it becomes the non negotiable. Not accepting less than becomes
Yes.
non negotiable. That's huge to get to that point in a society that basically sells you everything just being slightly less than we need it to be in order to sell more shit to you that you then buy and never use?
Yeah. I mean, all it takes is about 3 minutes of scrolling your Instagram feed to
Yes.
be sold on a quick fix or a formula that's
Yes.
going to magically make you explode in your business.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I don't know about you, but that's what my feed is right now. And it's really discouraging because um I'm a projector in human design. I
Oh my
don't know
gosh.
if you're
Okay. Yes,
what
I can see.
so part of being a projector is like I can see things from a different perspective, and I can
Mm,
like I'm also intuitive and empathetic. So not only am I seeing things from a bird's eye view, but I'm feeling it as well. So that's where
mm,
some of my superpowers as a coach and as a mentor come into play, because I can often pinpoint the things that you're thinking and feeling whether you know it or not. So, I'm looking at these ads, and I can see right through it. They're so clear to me that I'm like, damn, we've gone to a whole nother extreme. Like, we have all this accessibility. Like you mentioned earlier, you can have a website up tomorrow. You can have put your business on a platform today and get out there and start selling your stuff. But now we've taken it to the opposite extreme. There was no support, and now you're like inundated with messages that take you out of your own personal alignment because you feel
mm-hmm,
like if you don't do this one thing, you're going to freaking miss out.
mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm.
Boy, I
Mhm.
think part of my mission is in this life is to call that bullshit out.
So you're just saying, Laura, that six-figure businesses don't come overnight. If I
Look,
start a website tomorrow, I won't be making six figures if I follow those particular steps.
I don't care how many downloads you sell on Etsy.
Okay.
I don't care how many feet pictures you sell on OnlyFans. I
Okay.
don't care what quick fix you're being sold. Six figures does not happen in a week. It's just not the norm.
Laura, this is such disappointment.
I know. I know. It's like calling it a butt. Here we are.
We've gone full circle. I love this so much. Oh, Laura, this has been such a great chat. I agree. I can see it. I'm not a projector. I'm a generator. But I can see how a projector would see that straight away. Um, Oh, Laura, my question to you is how can people find you? Where can people listen to this no bullshit approach on TikTok? And how can people work with you? That's what I want to know.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I appreciate that you appreciate the no bullshit approach.
I love it.
I was looking back at my analytics over the weekend, just over the like literally since day one of TikTok, and I'm like,
Okay.
what seems to work the best for me? Because
Mm-hmm.
again, I felt myself getting out of alignment and falling into like you have to have the hook. You
Oh
have
my
to
gosh. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Laura. Yeah, I hear
you have to do these short clips. You have to use
you.
three hashtags. Yeah, and I got folded into the shoulds. That's what it
Yes.
all boils down to is folding
Yes.
getting into the shoulds. And so I'm like, what works for me and
Mm-hmm.
the people coming to my page? And you know the funny thing is the short one-liner like truth bombs that I drop,
Yes.
people love when I drop those. So
Uh, I
so
love
on
that.
TikTok, that's where I play the most. I'm at that Laura Aura, THAT Laura, and then
Mm-hmm.
AURA. So that is where I play the most. And then my website, lauraaura.com, is the hub for all things me. You can learn about my coaching programs on there. I do something called 90-minute alignment sessions, which are like
Nice.
hyper focus, like, here is my challenge. I need answers. I need clear action. What do I do next? Those you would be mind blown how much
Mm-hmm.
we can accomplish in 90 minutes together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a group. So the Gutsy Collective, we meet once a month online. And we just have real honest conversations about what's going on. You can get live mentorship and just be around like-minded people.
Nice. I didn't realize you had that. I love that. And the Gutsy podcast. People can go away and search the
Yes.
Gutsy
Oh, how can I
podcast.
forget about the Gutsy podcast? Yes. New episodes come out every week. Tuesday are with a guest, and then
Mhm.
every Thursday are episodes called Power Back episodes. And think of them like mini coaching sessions with me on very
Mm.
particular topics.
I love this, Laura. You've been such a gift. Thank you so, so much for coming on my little podcast over here. Thank you so much. Hey,
Little podcast, I would beg to differ, but
it's
I
growing.
appreciate it.
No, it is
There you go.
growing. It is growing because of TikTok Live. It is growing. I've been watching my stats and I'm like, oh, yeah, look
Oh, yes. There you go.
at you.
Showing up as yourself, doing your thing, working your magic. People find you. That's for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much.